Welcome to BWI Live. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Was that really loud? Was that like jarringly loud? Okay.
No.
All right. It's going to here in a second. I'm going to do my annual primal call when things change in the calendar. I will do this once again once we get to the regular season, and that's simply just to say, football is here. We saw football, Nate. We saw football happening again. So hello, how are you doing?
I'm good.
People are not used to this level of energy Monday morning at 10 a.m. or Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. What's going on?
I was going to talk about, I can hear the lawns being mowed in the frat houses around me. And I was like, oh, this is the rhythm, right, of the college town, right? And so it's still, right, 4-ish weeks away from Penn State's first football game. But we did have preseason media day on Saturday. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, I missed last week. Sorry, apologies, everyone. Little vacation. It was nice. But Las Vegas and the Big Ten Media Days is in the books. Local Media Day is in the books. We have another practice that we get to see later this week on Thursday afternoon. So yeah, it's, I love summer, and the start of all of this is just a little jarring, but also, I'm not too cool for school. I love getting back into it, right? This is going to be great. Once things really kind of pick up and get into the rhythm of the football season and actually have some football games to watch like that. You get a little more geeked over practice than I do. But football games, yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. It should be fun.
Somebody's got to have the hot takes here, Nate. Not everyone can say it's only one practice. We only got to see 20 minutes. We saw one live period. Somebody's got to be irresponsible. Fair. There's just the law of averages. You've got to be responsible. I can have hot takes and fly off the handle with my analysis. So that's kind of the dynamic here on the show today. Is like I'm all in on telling you some great things about the linebackers. Coming up on the show today, let's talk about what we're talking about today. What we're going to do is we're just going to go through Media Day because it's a big event. There's a bunch of different phases. James Franklin's press conference, getting to talk to the coordinators. Then we get a separate breakout session to talk to whoever you want on the Penn State staff and roster. Unfortunately, they don't stay there all day, so we can talk to each one of them individually. And so we're going to have some of that conversation. Of course, we're going to get to our practice observations very quickly here to start the show. But off the top, Nate, training camp is here, and let's start with those conversations, those one-on-ones, because we wrote about them. A lot of what we produced over the weekend from BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, where you can sign up right now for just $1, is based on those conversations. So what was the most interesting conversation you had at Media Day?
Honestly, I had a few, but I thought that, Andy Kotelnicki is just kind of reliably entertaining and willing to get into the weeds a little bit. And so one of the things that he said and alluded to in his broader press conference was, kind of the notion of how the new receivers have come in and how they've gone about their business and, just the demeanor that they bring, I guess, to that room and how helpful that has been, this veteran presence. And, look, there's a little bit of a game to all of this. And sometimes what people aren't saying directly is saying a lot. And so by the time that I got to speak to him one-on-one later in the breakout session, the broader session, it was a conversation about not finger pointing, right? This shared accountability, a willingness and an eagerness to make plays for others on the behalf of others, because everything's not going to be perfect all the time. And everybody knows that, right? There's no world where every pass that Drew Aller makes is going to be right on the money. Other players have to make plays on his behalf, right? Drew can make plays on Andy Kotelnicki's behalf.
Right.
Right. Vice versa. The running backs, the offensive line, this whole dynamic of all for each other is one that I think he has fostered really intently this offseason, and maybe says a little bit about last year.
We'll get to that later in between the lines. Great foreshadowing. My most interesting conversation was actually on Nate's porch with his daughter, who started to absolutely roast me about being bald. Just relentless. She said my name. I said my name. She asked what my name was, and I says like T Frank or whatever, blah blah blah. And she's like, "No, your name is Oopsie Boopsie," or something like that. And she's like, "It's on your head. It's written on your head." I'm like, "You want me to get a tattoo?" And she's like, "No, it's just up there. Why are you bald?" And so I had it. I got abs. I just got. It was just like searing. Nate, do you teach her these things? Is this she's getting all these comebacks and one-liners from you?
You know, I was gonna say you're kind of exposing me as the bad parent that I am. And when do we talk about Antifragile? Is that
So actually, my most interesting conversation amongst football players, I talked to the injured guys, a lot of the guys coming back from injuries this past off season, and it was fascinating to me. Anthony Donko was talking about, and I asked him about playing injured. And James Franklin had delivered a line last offseason of like, you have to learn how to play within the confines of your situation. I'm paraphrasing here. Like, you've got to adapt to whatever your situation is. If you're not 100%, you've got to find a way to be productive if you're going to be out there. And that didn't apply to just Donko. There's a couple of players that had that kind of tag on them. But Donko was the obvious one where he couldn't use one of his arms during a certain football game last year. So I asked him about that, and he, even in that moment, refused to say limitations or compensation when talking about the injury. It just speaks to the idea that football players are relentlessly protective of their vulnerability. And all these guys, you know, they'll admit like it sucks in the moment because, shocker, being injured sucks in the moment. But then it was like, yeah, it was no big deal. Rehab is a thing. You just get on it. You grind it. You do the next thing. You make sure, you know, just the want-to-know mentality that they've been brainwashed sounds negative, but, you know, positively brainwashed into to accept the situation and at least publicly say, like, there are no problems. So I found that fascinating of just the mind and the mentality from player to player to player. Talk to Alonzo Ford, talk to Peter Gonzalez, talk to Anthony Donko. All these guys, I'm not going to say they were positive about their injuries, but they were very confident that, you know, coming back. Oh, and Jackson Smolik even said coming back faster and stronger off of that injury. So it's an impressive mindset. And it's one that I think, as I've said here before on the channel, I think it also comes back to bite them where, okay, we don't accept that you don't accept any excuses. So then when we try to explain your play when it's suboptimal and we say injury, nobody else accepts that excuse too. So it's just a fascinating mind into the contradiction of football in general.
I thought that I think it was Justin Lustig who was speaking about Tony Rojas and said, I think that there's an expectation, and a lot of times based on reality, is that at most you are going to be like, you hope to be the same version of yourself that you were before you got hurt by the time you come back from that injury. And when he talked about Tony Rojas, it was, he's better. He's physically improved. And has put in the work and has done those things where when you can combine physical advancement with, you know, the mental instinctiveness that's kind of required of that position, it just is making him seem like he's playing really, really, really fast.
Yeah.
In the opening days of camp.
And I just said about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago that I basically, my hot take of the summer was, if you're coming back from an injury, you're not going to be better than you were last year. And you know,
yeah, You're wrong.
Could be wrong about that one.
T. Frank was wrong.
T. Frank was wrong. This one, Nate, we have our first. Are you kidding me? Thank you, but are you kidding me? 2 kids, 1 life, all PSU. Donating $50, kicking off the football season with a super chat. Says, thank you for the primal football call. Just putting it out into the universe. We are calling all football fans to join us for the season. You guys have been great throughout the offseason. Now we get to see it on the field. Yeah, we're going to have our practice updates. I was on my stuff this week, so you've got a bunch of highlights we're going to get to here at as we talk about training camp. You're going to see some of the things that I'm basing my observations off of. In the chat, Nate, was there anything else here in the chat during the first couple minutes of the show that we need to get to? I saw Eastern Iowa is a huge bummer. Once again, saying 9-3 season. Okay, we heard you. Eastern Iowa has done this in every single show since joining here. And that's cool. And I love that you're here and I love that you're participating. We do understand that you think this is a 9-3 season now. So we have received that information.
I said 10-2. I just think that people's the razor between 9-3 and 10-2 is getting to the playoff or not. And so, it's we'll see what happens. I think that there's a broad refusal isn't the right word. It's just so much has changed in college football over the last 5 years that it's difficult for everyone to grasp that the standard of having to win every football game that you play is gone. It's just gone. It's just not. Right. It's just not reality anymore. So you can go 12-0. You can go 13-0. You can go 12-1, 11-2. But whatever, if you only lose 2 games in the regular season in the Big Ten, you are going to the playoff. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. That's it. By the way, Eastern Iowa, we're just playing around. No one's trying to throw you under the bus. Just more of
I am.
Yeah, of course. Nate is the bad guy here. If there's anyone here that has ulterior motives of being contrarian, you are contrarian, to being aggressive, it would be Nate Bauer. And his jovial smile and his boyish charms. Okay, now talk to us about beer. Tell us about Antifragile.
Oh, my goodness. I miss it. It's been a little bit, but the best beer in State College continues to be an outstanding partner and sponsor of this show, and we appreciate that so much. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, they brew all of their beer in-house. They're located on East Calder Way. It is easy to get to. It is easy to park there. No parking excuses. But once you get inside, you're going to meet some of the friendliest people in town with some of the best beer that is made in State College or really anywhere. I mean, it's just great. And it's a rotating menu. They always have hazies and IPAs and imperial stouts and lots of stuff that I don't drink, but also lots of stuff that I do drink. Maybe cutting back a little bit.
You don't like imperial stouts? I love stouts. Oh, gosh. Loved stouts.
In the summer?
I don't care. I don't care.
That's like a fireplace drink.
Yes, it is. And I will maintain that if it's good in the winter, it's going to be good in the summer. I'm one of those people that drinks red wine in the summer. I'll drink something dark and heavy in the summer no matter what it is. Because here's the deal is I don't care. The heat, I don't care. Plus, sure. Nate, how many people now that are watching the show, if you have the infrastructure and the time and the leisure to watch a YouTube show at 10:15, how many of us don't have central air? Go inside and enjoy an imperial stout. It's fine. I understand there's the seasonality, and I'm not going to drink a pumpkin ale in the summer. That's crazy. But I'm not going to ignore a whole genre of drinks just because it's like the red wine and fish thing. I don't play by your rules.
I have red wine. I have red wine with my sushi and my Thai all the time. I pretty much anyway. It doesn't matter. We didn't even talk about John's.
Yes,
There's cheesesteaks there too.
Tell us about it.
No, they're so good. That's it. I'm done.
All right. Well, we need to get to Penn State's practice, which we got to see an extended view on Saturday, and I love that when they give us some one-on-one competition periods. We're going to get to those highlights now in our Penn State practice update.
You gotta win, goddamn! You gotta win!
Nate, we got a chance to see the offense, the defense. Special teams was working inside, and I want to get your thought on what you saw from Penn State practice to start off. What are some of your big picture things, maybe some of the broader things you noticed while at camp?
Yeah, I spent quite a bit of time with the receivers, and look, they just. Can I go on a tangent? I'll go on a tangent.
Do it.
In the 2008 Rose Bowl, I want to say this is one of those ingrained memories. 2008 Rose Bowl, I was on the field before the game, and Penn State's receivers in that game were Derek Williams, Jordan Norwood, and somebody else. I'm missing some. Yeah, Dion, right? And I think they averaged out at like maybe 5'11", 6 foot, right? Mm-hmm. They were just USC's receivers in that game were giants.
Yeah.
I will never forget seeing those guys on the field, and they just looked like robots, as though they had been designed in a lab. Fast forward 20 years, and Penn State has some receivers that look like robots. Designed in a lab, right? Now, they are younger, right? The bulk of that, the guys I'm talking about, Matt Outen, right? Peter Gonzalez.
Yep. Lyric Samuel.
Well, now Lyric is like, he's still skinny. He needs to put.
Yeah, but a big dude from a height
tall.
Perspective. Agreed.
Yeah, very much so. So you kind of just run through that list of these guys. Kobe Howard, right, is a little bit shorter. I think he's 6'1", maybe, but he just
already 205 as a freshman.
Yeah, just
and
big.
Jeff Exeter wearing 80.
That was the
like
one.
225.
Yeah,
I mean, he looks like speaking of a receiver from 2008, he looks like a receiver from 2008 when they were all monsters.
Yeah, little Megatron action. No, but they pass all of those looks tests.
Yep.
So it's more of a future thing, I think, than a now thing. I think that certainly there is still, if you read between the lines on some of the stuff that James Franklin said, Marcus Hagan's on Saturday, it's, this idea of getting the room back to normal progression, right? Where you have seniors who carry, the bulk of the production, but you've got, some of these younger guys who earn opportunities and start to make a dent and start to make a path for themselves. There's a lot of those guys, right? We are talking about a lot of young guys who have that opportunity. I don't know that it's going to be so much as to display, like they paid for and targeted transfer portal receivers.
Yeah,
those guys
absolutely.
they're gonna play. It's not a beating out situation. Now, obviously if it warrants it, if it demands it, sure. But that they went out in the transfer portal with intention. And so I anticipate, quite a bit of Kyron Hudson, right? And Trevor Pena, Devontae Ross, I think is still battling some stuff from this summer. We'll see what his health situation is and when he'll be, completely full go. And Liam Clifford, right? The guy that we don't really talk about a whole lot, but he's going to play. He's going to continue to play football. Had a ton of snaps last year for Penn State, and I would be surprised if that's dramatically displaced this year. So but again, like that's what you're kind of going for, right? Is you want older players to carry the bulk of the load, and then have those younger guys that can push them a little bit from behind.
I had the same feeling watching them in the spring. I didn't spend as much time with the receivers on Saturday because I had spent so much time with them previously, and I really wanted to see the defense for once. The problem with the defense is some of the more interesting things that happen, DBs, corners, some of the information we've been, working on and trying to understand, that all happens way far away from us. So trying to get you highlights, trying to get you video here for the YouTube channel, I don't really want to zoom all the way in and get a guy that's like this big on camera as opposed to the linebackers who are right in your face. So spend a little more time personally with those players. But I'll cut right to it. The most interesting thing we got to see was they did a perimeter blocking drill. We saw this in the spring where they do this of you got to capture the edge, whether you're the tight end or the linebacker. In this particular situation, it was receivers and DBs previously. This time it was the big boys. It was the linebackers and tight ends. And we went into this year thinking the linebackers, maybe they're going to be a weakness. Tony Rojas, nobody believes in Tony Rojas after last season. Amari Campbell is a transfer and a guy who, had some ups and downs last year. Dom DeLuca is eternally replaceable to certain Penn State fans. I got to tell you, of this particular drill, and I'm speaking specifically about this blocking drill. That's Khalil Dinkins and Tony Rojas. Tony Rojas dominated this drill for the most part. That's, you're seeing Nick Singleton lose in this situation to LeVar Arrington, Anthony Specca, Keon Wiley, Amari Campbell. All these linebackers, they were able to either win the edge and shed the block, or, force the ball back inside. And so it was just a really impressive showing from the linebackers in a physicality drill, when I think that there was a question coming into this camp about the linebacker physicality. And if Dom DeLuca is getting to a stalemate, the problem was there was no running back on this particular play, so they just kind of stopped. But it was a really strong showing by the linebackers, in an area where I think there was some question about this group coming in of their physicality and their ability to play through contact, and going through running backs and tight ends, not going through, receivers. I thought they looked really impressive in this drill.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, cat's out of the bag here, but I had a good conversation with Jim Knowles, and I think it is fair to say the circumstance that we're in the spring, which, as soon as Tamir left, it was like, whoa, right? I mean, I think that's fair. It became a situation where they really didn't have any choice but to go out and get Amari Campbell. They like Amari Campbell. They love him now. But at the time, I think it was seen as a move of necessity. They might not have had to go in that direction had Tamir not left. But he did. Mm-hmm. But when you combine that with, okay, you've seen Amari now, and Amari's good. Dom DeLuca, they know what they've got there, and they like what they've got there. And by the way, Tony Rojas, who, you're counting on coming back and being really good and having a big year this year, but you don't know. You don't know until he's out there, and you still don't know, right? This has to happen in games. But for the time being, I think that they have seen enough where maybe there are more avenues and options available to them in terms of the structure of the defense and how and what they're going to do. Right? It's you. I think Jim Knowles talked about it, and you can certainly do a much better job than I can of explaining how in college football there are so many different offensive looks and identities. Yeah, that's a departure from the NFL. That you have to be able to adjust. You have to be able to give different looks and change a little bit of what you do defensively from week to week, dependent on the opponent. And so if you have 3 starting linebackers instead of 2 starting linebackers, that becomes an option, and that becomes a thing that Penn State can explore.
Yeah. And so Ohio State even ran some of those base defense 3 linebacker looks last year. So even previously, it's been in the Knowles defense. I'm still skeptical that they're going to roll that out as a regular part of this defense, but it is something that they've got, in the bag if they need to, for sure.
It's just an option, right? Yep. That's really what you're talking about is that this team and this defense, well, first of all, what Jim Knowles does, right? And then you see the personnel on this team, and you see that it is heavily skewed toward the cornerbacks. I think Jim said they were the best unit on the team. It was funny. I'm actually going to have to go back, and it might be a story that I write I think I counted at least 3 different people saying that 3 different things were the best unit on the team.
Well, that's a good place to be in if you've got confidence and conviction in that and not just saying it, right?
Yeah. So, but again, like, there's going to be 5 defensive backs on the field a lot. That's going to be kind of what they roll out pretty consistently. Yeah. But and if you do have more...
Sorry, the part that I think is interesting about what Jim Knowles talks about and kind of the overall theme about his defense too is it's not just about the personnel packages that you got to be able to adapt to different attacks from the opponent. It's also within the structure of the scheme, like the coverages. He runs a lot of different coverages to make the quarterback uncomfortable because there are so many different styles of attack. You can't run cover 3 against a spread team as easily as you could against a team that wants to take vertical shots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just different ideas of what those defensive weaknesses are in your coverages. And so if you run, we're going to run a couple things really well, you are going to have inherent weaknesses against teams. And if you're playing the best of the best, they're going to eventually expose that weakness. So you've got to make sure you have a bunch of different things. And to me, in this defense, as opposed to previously, they're going to do more of that. And I think both of those things to me, it's all about, do you have an answer? Not necessarily do you have a strength everywhere? It doesn't necessarily have to be the answer. It's, do you at least have an answer to X, Y, or Z on the field? This is from Christian in the chat. And this is something that I noticed, not just during this particular drill, but Christian says, Amari Campbell to Smolik, if you watch the highlights, where Jackson Smolik cuts back inside. Damn, the QB trying to run me over. So we've been talking, Nate, about who's going to replace Tyler Warren in the offense. And the answer I've seen so far is yes. Just who's going to do it? Yes. If you are an eligible player, you're going to run the football. If you're an eligible player in the backfield, you're probably going to line up at quarterback. And importantly, we've seen them take quarterbacks and have them do the ball security drills. We've seen them go through lines with tight ends and running backs and receivers before. They were the runners in this drill. Drew Aller, by the way, 2 observations here. Drew Aller going through the line more than once, your starting quarterback, and obviously it's tag off. They're not going to hit the actual runner. But and him making football moves out there, Nate, I thought he looked good. Like, legitimately, he's going to be a running element in this offense. It's not just about his scrambling. It's not just about his pocket movement. There is an intent here, I think, to say we're going to run the full thing, and Drew Aller is going to be part of the run game. And I think that that's a little scary, but might be the right thing for this offense to make it the full Andy Kotelnicki offense. You got to have those elements under center because those are the things that put the defense in conflict and make all of the pieces, all the puzzle pieces, all the locks all come together. And it's a big part of it. I've been developing this all offseason, this opinion. What is the one thing Andy Kotelnicki, Nate, has talked about with Drew Aller this offseason? Every time he gets a chance.
Looking really good.
Just oogling him. Just oogling him. He looks so good.
Very good. Yeah.
He's got hamstrings. He's got delts. He's got traps. Every time he's admiring a different part of his quarterback's physique. Yeah. To me, this is all signifying they're gonna run the football. Aller's going to be more of an athlete in the offense, and it's going to bring a more well-rounded approach to the offense. And I think it could create great things for this offense as well.
Yeah, and it's partly a bow symptom too, right? Is to not have to do that, to be able to have
exactly
one package, right? So that you have different, like, I don't know. I don't go down the well of limiting Andy Kotelnicki's the stuff he's going to pull. It's going to be weird. He's going to love it.
Yes. There's a lot of stuff that you look at. I wrote about this in my notebook, Nate. We understand that there are certain things that they ask us not to show because it is a part of the playbook. Like, there are schematic advantages to not having those things out in public. They want to bring us in, but there is this kind of give and take of don't blow everything up for us if we're going to run stuff in front of you. And Andy Kotelnicki runs so many goofy things in the skeleton period that it's kind of hard. Like, there's a fine line between, okay, so I'm not going to use any of that because if I see X, Y, or Z in motion, I know that that's a part of the playbook now. And if it's, running a wildcat, running a funky motion with a player you don't expect, like, there's so many things they're practicing even in front of us right now. To your point, there's going to be so much weird crap in this offense. And I mean that in a compliment of, like, the defense is going to look at this and go, I don't know what to do with that. And that's the point. Like, it's supposed to stress your defensive rules and go, what do I do right now? Why would that happen? Why would that thing happen? And they're going to do a lot of that this year. Yeah.
So your concern is Drew getting hurt? Is that?
Yeah. I think that they're smart enough not to put him in those situations, but the injury risk does go up. Like, they want him to run selectively. I don't think that's changed, but selectively still means enough times more than it has been in the past. And so that is always a variable. That is always a risk. But the good news is, so I was watching Nevada this week to start prepping for the first week of the season. They're not going to run him like Nevada ran him, because when you run the quarterback as an element in the offense where it's compensating for the fact that we don't have a passing game or we don't have a traditional running game, you're using all of those cheat codes as your main part of your offense. That's when you're in trouble. Penn State's not going to be doing that. But I do think Drew Aller is going to be in positions to make plays with the ball in his hands, and that just increases the likelihood of those things happening, however much that is. That doesn't mean a lot. It just means some.
Yep.
Any other thoughts from practice? Any other observations? Anything you wanted to get off your chest?
No, not really. I thought that and look, it's trying to decipher vibe is always a dangerous game. Mm-hmm. But I think, from a coaching staff perspective, maybe getting into these guys a little bit more, you have a group that can handle it. That can take that type of coaching, and really just sharpness. Again, going back to Kotelnicki, he acknowledged to me that he wasn't real happy with how the first practice went. They had been really, really, really dialing in the execution specifics, the details, in a way that. Right. And you hear Franklin talk about this, about, starting at trigonometry in preseason camp, because they've been in this system for a year. Everybody knows it, that you're not teaching those elements, the concepts elements. Now you're teaching, hey, this is exactly how we want you to whatever, come off a block, right. It just all of this is where your foot needs to be, all of those specifics. And not only are they teaching it and drilling it and giving it attention, but they're doing it hard. Like they mean it. Yeah. And so even in the one, and I'm sure you heard it, Franklin, in that drill that you showed, Andrew Rappley, he lost maybe a rep, and Franklin was like, that's not good enough, right? Like that. Okay, well, what does that mean? It wasn't bad. It's just not to the standard that they want. And I think that you're going to see quite a bit of that based on the expectations that this team has this season.
So the last thing from practice, and I put this out on the YouTube channel, I want to say Saturday, maybe it was yesterday, but I thought this was a fun thing because his son is on the team. LeVar Arrington is hanging out around practice as a dad. And when we were going over to that drill, he was standing right next to me and narrating for everybody, who's doing well, focusing obviously on the linebackers. So if you didn't check it out on it's just 60 seconds. I figured I could play it here. I didn't put it in the full highlight package because whenever there's audio, like the system mutes us. So this is a nice way to send us out of our practice observations by giving you practice observations from a first round number 2 overall draft pick, I think, in the NFL draft.
Nice. That's nice, Tone. That's nice. Oh, that's nice. That's what you got to keep going. Though. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. Good. That's not bad. Bad feet. Move like Cinco. No. Stop. That's nice. That was nice. That's nice. Wind up.
So there you have it. I think nice is the 1990s vernacular of fire or bet or I don't know. I'm not cool, so I won't try any farther.
Mystery Science Theater, a little bit. I love it.
Yeah. So something that's not nice. This came out before Penn State held us at practice and media day and all those things. We found out that Kaden Saunders, Penn State receiver, going to be out with a long-term injury yet again. Last year wasn't designated as out with a long-term injury, but he did not play on offense during the season, and now officially with a long-term injury. So let's just recap where he was heading into camp, what his spring was, and what the future might hold now for Kaden Saunders, a redshirt junior who I think it's fair to say won't play this year, Nate. I mean, with that kind of news right now, that feels like it would be hard for him to come back during the season.
Yeah, I think he missed some or all of the spring. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So
he was out there for the beginning of spring, but then I think midway and maybe even the final third it was that he missed and then wasn't in the blue-white game.
Yeah. So it's just been a tough go for him. It's tough because obviously he was a guy that there was great anticipation for his arrival to Penn State, and he went through some stuff, right? They're getting bigger, and physically there were some concerns there about the improvements that he needed to make in his testing and all of that stuff that has to be right before you can really be an effective football player. And so there were some strides made there, but I think it was a foot thing last year in preseason that knocked him out and knocked him off course. And now to have something come back up and take away this season or most of the season, it's just tough. You feel for the kid and his family, obviously. And we'll see what it means for his future at Penn State. It always been, at least from my perspective and some of the feedback, is like, he's a good kid. Yeah. Right. He's a good kid to have in the program. It's just to lose back-to-backs like this makes it that's an uphill climb. So we'll see how he responds.
And it's the constant nagging injuries that I think that have defined his career. There was the slow start. He's even been open about it. It was tough for him to leave home. He had that kind of transition from high school to college he didn't take to it as quickly as some other people do. And that's a regular thing for players to get homesick and to deal with the stress of having to learn football, being a football player, and also being a college student. Like all of it happening at once, there's a little bit of that overwhelming thing. The weight thing of trying to put on weight and be bigger and physical, all these in the attempts to play early, by the way, like that, the pressure of trying to play early as a top 100 pick and trying to do things that you think are right in order to bulk up. And then suddenly you're not as fast or as explosive. And when you're heavier and you're trying to be an athlete and it's not good, lean muscle, that leads to injuries. And I'm not saying one led to the other. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I am saying like that was the early part of his career. And then really the definition of that since then has been, I think it was last spring was like his only healthy offseason where he's really had a chance to put in the work. And then we get into camp and he's injured. And you and I were having this conversation of the way he looked in the blue-white game, concentration drops were, and you even saw there in the intro, like when we've seen him, there have been some issues with drops and things like that. But he was so much more dynamic than everybody else that was going to be on the field at his position that it felt like he was a guy that needed to participate. And an element of last year that we don't discuss is they didn't have that. Whether or not he was going to be on for 50 snaps in the season or 100 snaps or whatever it was, they didn't have the option without Kaden Saunders, which led to a lot of what we saw last year with that particular receiver group. And now I know we don't like to speculate on the future of a team, but it feels like there's a lot of really young, talented players that are getting a lot of opportunity, Nate. Do you think we'll ever see him in a Penn State uniform? Because that's the chat has decided that no. The internet at large has said you'll never see him in a Penn State uniform. Do you rule that out?
I don't play the hypothetical game in college football because it's so random and there's so many different things that can happen, right? You just have to see how things take, and again, I mean, I'm not in a position to know his his medical history or his prognosis, right? I mean, I think the first thing is less about Penn State than is he going to play football, right?
Right.
Is this? And you would imagine yes, right? It doesn't seem to be something that would preclude him from coming back if he is on that path. And some of his social media responses yesterday seemed to indicate pretty clearly that he is intending to be back from this. But you just got to see, and you got to see what where and how he can help Penn State in the future if that's the player that he can get back to being.
Nate, we're cooking. This show has been flying by. We're about to get into our final segment of the show, which is one of my favorites, where Nate plays interpreter, and we go between the lines of what the coaches are saying. He's already hinted at some of the things we're going to talk about here in this final segment, but if you want to get the breakdown of some of these things that we've discussed here, we've had it all first at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, whether it's the observations from practice, whether it's the highlights where we, I'm just talking about what I saw, which a lot of it is based on what you see here and some other observations. It's all at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com first. You can check it out for just $1. You can access for a week to try us out, and then you can join us for the rest of the football season. Now's a great time to get in for that $1 because you're going to get all the things we just talked about. Observations, notes, insider intel. We have a weekly chat just for subscribers over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com where you get the information, the sourced information from Nate Bauer, Sean Fitz, Greg Pickle, Ryan Snyder to give you the information you're dying to know. Some of the things that we either can't get to here on the show or just don't get to because people do a great job, support us over there as well, and we want to make sure we're honoring those people and their commitments to us over on the site. But let's get to Between the Lines.
They have both gotten reps with
Okay, so we've got a guest appearance from Andy Kotelnicki on today's Between the Lines. So let's guests go first. Let's hear what he had to say. This is about the assessment when asked about the 3 transfer receivers, Trevor Pena, Devontae Ross, and Kyron Hudson. What's the assessment of, I don't remember how it was phrased, but here you go.
What I would talk about is that those individuals specifically have been fantastic teammates. And you have dynamic issues as you're referencing as a team when you have guys who, immediately start acting selfish and start to do selfish things. And those guys haven't at all. And they've been nothing but a great part of our program. And so the dynamics have been awesome because they're awesome, right? As people. And they work hard, they grind. They have been leaders in their own right. And as you know and can imagine, when you're newer, it's harder. To be a leader, someone who's been in our program for a long time, like Nick Dawkins and Drew Aller, but those two, all those guys were leaders on their team before they left there. Right. And now they're here in our program. So it's been awesome.
Nate, it's been awesome. And as you mentioned earlier, I think I know where you're going to go with this, so I don't want to spoil the reveal, but what's he saying in the relief of that comment?
Yeah. There's a little bit of what isn't in the room this year, and the notion of being great teammates and not blaming other people is something that may have happened in the past. So look, I think 2 things are important here. It's not like Trey Wallace and Omari Evans got processed. They weren't told to leave, right?
Right.
Penn State would have gladly had them back this year, but to have gotten to a place where the rest of the room or the entirety of the room, Liam Clifford has long been cited as a standard bearer of habits, right? And doing things the right way and treating, the game and his teammates and all that stuff, doing those things the right way. To have more of that now, including from players that are going to play a ton of reps. That's a good change, right? That's a good thing for Penn State football this season to have, the things that Andy Kotelnicki just talked about.
Culture is such an amorphous word that means nothing until it absolutely it's essential, right? It is the fabric of what makes people and businesses and groups of people successful or less successful. And I think the biggest conversation we've had about the receiver room over the last several seasons has been culture. The culture of the room, not just leading by example, not just leading by your words or being a vocal leader, but being a vocal leader in the right way or leading and leaving the right example. And so they went out and got, as James Franklin talked about, captains, guys that were captains on their previous teams to come in and be receivers, not just because they wanted that veterancy and they wanted that for the position, but also because they wanted that for the room. They wanted a reset of some of those dynamics because they've got so many young, talented receivers, not just for this year, but to set them up for success in the future, I think is also like a big part of this conversation.
I just want to correct just one piece of narrative that I see happening in the chat, and that I think just in general is, maybe attached to this situation. I don't think diva is the right term. I don't think that's, to me, again, this is me reading between the lines, just some of the conversation. It was about, it's not my fault. Right. And when you have an entire situation of it's not my fault, it's Drew's fault or the offensive line's fault or Andy Kotelnicki's, it's Andy Kotelnicki's fault for me not getting the opportunities, right? Because again, like there are valid trains of thought of the we talked about it at other points this offseason, but we talk about the receivers, that no receivers having a catch in the Orange Bowl.
Yep.
They only had 5 targets, right?
Yeah.
The ball was only thrown to them 5 times. Now there is another train of thought that is equally valid of they weren't open and did not deserve to have the ball thrown to them. Yeah. Right. So, but you've got this constant state of conflict rather than, and again, like this is something that Andy Kotelnicki said directly of, what can I do to make this better? To quote unquote, make it better, right? Make it right. And they didn't, I don't think that was always the attitude or the way that they carried themselves to want to do the things that even if in reality it was not their fault, to shoulder some of that, right? Being like a selflessness, I guess, is a way to put it. So yeah, they are anticipating it yielding dividends this year to have a better, a little bit better vibe. Drew Aller is not going to be perfect this year. Throws get missed, right? These things happen. No quarterback is perfect. No offensive line is perfect. No receiver, you name it. So it's just about how can this group coalesce and move in the same direction and move in lockstep towards their goals. And I think they feel like they're doing that this year.
Corgan family asks, Wildcat package without Bo Pabula and Tyler Warren, what does it look like if you had a guess? If you didn't check it out, we talked about this in an earlier segment where we were discussing practice and what we've seen so far. The answer is everybody. I think everybody's going to run the football. It's quarterbacks included, every quarterback included. We also had another one here. Sorry for the delay in getting us off track, but I just want to make sure people here in the chat are seen and heard on the show. For the people listening on the podcast, I wish I could do the same for you. If you leave a comment, I check that semi-regularly. We can get your comments here on the YouTube show, obviously on a delay, because you're not able to watch it live with us, but we love you and we love the support you get us from the podcast side of things. Love of the Game podcast says, what's your impact you see from Khalil Dinkins having on the offense? I don't know that he's going to be Tyler Warren in the Tyler Warren package the way we just described, but I mean, he made Bruce Feldman's freak list. And he's one of the better blockers in college football at the tight end position. So his impact is, I don't know what the ceiling is just yet because we don't know how the receivers are going to work into that. We don't know how the running backs are going to work into that. But I don't know that he's going to be the focal point of the offense the way that Tyler Warren was because I think they have more options this year. I don't think Tyler Warren last year was necessarily plan A as they went into the season because his targets ramped up as the season went on to the insane degree they got to, as opposed to where it was at the beginning of the year.
Nittany said this offseason, more or less, paraphrasing here, but it's like, was I not supposed to get the ball to Tyler Warren all the time? He was the best player on the field. Like, what? He'd be an idiot not to. If somebody asserts themselves, I do think that they think the diversity of their talent is better this year, that it's the difference from the strength or the very best players that they have and next best is not a gap. I don't think.
It's not the continental shelf where it just drops.
Yeah. So I think that that's important.
James Franklin talking about the backup quarterback battle. Both Nate and I wrote about this, and I found this funny in a way, in a certain way. Not necessarily, James Franklin didn't say anything funny, and I don't think that this is a sarcastic thing. I just think people's thought process is always entertaining, and I want to get Nate's view on him talking about the backup quarterback battle.
So we're gonna, this thing's I think gonna go right down to the wire. Depending if it finishes up like it did in the spring, it could continue throughout the entire year. If it's close, if there's a gap, there's a gap. But if it's close, I think the competition could go throughout the year. Whoever has the best week that week is going to be the backup quarterback type of deal. So having all that data to try to compare and contrast is valuable. But we'll see. Again, it could be there's a gap, by one of them, and it's clear who the number 2 quarterback is, or this will go through the season. And to be honest with you, if it's close all season, it could go in the next year.
So I don't know. I'm gonna read between the lines here, and you can tell me if I'm correct.
Okay.
This is how my mind works, where I want to manifest the best possible outcome. I want to think of and then project into the world what's the best possible situation, in my own life or when I'm thinking about football, et cetera, et cetera. The best possible outcome for the quarterback battle is there is no outcome and both guys stay on the roster and nobody transfers. And James Franklin mentioning that at the end, I think that's him throwing that out there into the universe of, hey, what if we just didn't pick a backup quarterback and suddenly we have 2 guys competing next year? And if we make a decision now, it means that we probably don't get to make a decision in 2026. Is that an accurate reading of what he's saying?
I think a little bit, but I'm not sure it's quite that dramatic. Did everyone expect Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, Drew Aller, Zane Durant, Denai Dennis Sutton, all those guys to come back this year? No, they didn't. Conversations are had. Value is determined. And really, I think something that Penn State does as well as maybe anybody in the country is, yes, develop relationships with players and their families, but more important than having strong relationships and just trust us dynamic, it's, hey, these are the facts, right? These are, this is what happens when you're constantly transferring, right? These outcomes that you see all over college football of guys who, once you leave your home for the first time, the school that you initially pledged to and began your career with, and like, it is not the grass is always greener all the time. There are plenty of situations where it worked out. You're seeing with Penn State's portal pickups this year, guys who Penn State has communicated that of they felt like they needed to be somewhere else to reach their full potential, right? So there might be a ceiling at Syracuse. There might be a ceiling at Southern Cal. Whereas at Penn State, yeah, there's a huge opportunity and a quarterback who's primed to make you look good and to be good. I don't know. I don't think it is necessarily a foregone conclusion that picking a number 2 quarterback means the other one is gone. What I do think is going to happen, and is we've had this conversation all offseason about how terrible Penn State's schedule is this year, right? The non-conference portion. There's only 3 games to play with, and it's fair. It's a fair critique. Penn State gets 2 months of preseason camp and actual game experience before they play anybody who poses a threat to beat them. That using that extra month of that preseason time is ample opportunity to sort some of this stuff out. And I think that they intend to use all of it, right? If it is not a clear distinction, you can test things out and go in different ways, and mix and match and see what works and see what doesn't, and then commit to it moving forward after that.
Yeah, and that is also excellent segue. Excellent segue. That also goes to the offensive line. We might see a lot of combinations up front, as James Franklin discussed when talking about his right tackle battle, but also the offensive line as a whole.
I'm not sure how it's going to work out. Donko was playing as well as anybody in the country before his injury. Rucci comes in and finishes the season as well as any tackle in the country. And then we got some young guys that are fighting and battling, them as well. I would also say, you guys know this, we've worked hard at creating position flexibility. So a guy like Donko also has the ability to play inside. So, what we're trying to do is how do we get the best 5 guys on the field, and then how do we also create depth, with whoever our backup tackle is going to be, whoever our backup guard is going to be, whoever our backup center is going to be, the next best offensive lineman to get on the field. So all those things we're trying to figure out, during training camp.
There's a balance here, Nate, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Andy Kotelnicki then later said, I think about 20 minutes later, we want to do all those things, but we also don't want to iterate to the point that we haven't actually practiced anything concrete with 5 guys working together routinely. So I talked to Phil Trautwein about this, and he mentioned, and again, deflected from Anthony Donko to, I'm moving everybody around the line of scrimmage, right tackle playing left tackle playing right tackle, guards playing tackle, tackles playing guard, etc. But the focus is because of what James Franklin said. Anthony Donko was playing as good as anybody before he got injured. How do you view this battle between those 2 players and the then knock-on effects it has on the offensive line in the timeline that you just outlined of having basically 2 months? When do you think they need to have that conversation finalized?
Do you think they're going to have it finalized? I just think they're going to have 3 guys that play 2 positions, and really not even that. I mean, I think there's even more than that. I think Vega is going to see some time at center this year. I think that they see an advantage in having as many ready to play guys as they possibly can. And Franklin brought it up in Las Vegas, Big Ten Media Days, having I'm paraphrasing because I don't want to, I think he said 8 starters, right? Was like, they see it as though they have 8 starters. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot. And yeah, there are downsides to that of guys being unhappy that they're quote unquote not like actual starters. But I do think the position flexibility thing is important, and they're going to try to play around with that and find out what the best combinations are. And right, it's a square is not a rectangle. A rectangle is a square. A little bit. Can Rucci play guard?
So I don't think so.
That's what I'm saying.
I
Right?
But Phil Trautwein has mentioned that, and I wouldn't put it. So here's the thing: he could play guard. That's the crazy thing, is he has the pad level, he has the flexibility. But is it the best between the two? A 6'5" or a 6'8" offensive lineman? You're going to go to the 6'5", 330 guy instead of the guy who's 6'8", 305 or 310, whatever he is. It's just like there are certain things. He's such a strong run blocker, you can't rule it out. But why would you? Why would you do that when you have a guy that's Anthony Donko shaped between the two?
Yeah. So I do think, but it doesn't change the fact that Donka, his trajectory long term is probably a tackle, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe not.
He could go either way. Honestly, I think he's an NFL guard or tackle. Like because he's 6'5", he's got the right length to play outside, but he's so powerful. Like that. This is the thing I wrote about this week. It's rare that you find. And Phil Trautwein said he's never had this where he's been able to take depth from tackle and play it inside. They've also never had their best offensive lineman, and I mean best in terms of probably most talented overall, with power, athleticism, pass blocking, etc., be your swing tackle. Like that is also a wild place for this offensive line to be in. So it's just such a unique situation that it's hard to pin this down. But I do think eventually, at a certain point, you do need to pin it down. You need to decide who are the five guys that are going to work together and be on the field. The last thing that I have before we have to get out of here, and this is the question that's kind of an open-ended question. Nolan Rucci is out of eligibility this year. So they're not going to give anybody like any favors. He has to go earn it. But it seems like at this point, he's at least earned the right to be on the field in a comparable way to Anthony Donko. So both things being equal, I think that's part of this equation too, of maybe Donko is the better tackle overall, but if it's close, why wouldn't you reward the guy who trusted you to come to your program out of Wisconsin and give him the best opportunity in his final season to prove to the NFL he can play at the next level?
Well, and again, like part of this is, if this, then that, okay, maybe Donka is the best right tackle and Rucci's just like that far behind him. Okay. Mm-hmm. What's the difference at right guard? Right. Like what are your options at right guard? And then where's the gap between the top right guard and the next right guard? And
we haven't said Cooper Cousins' name outright because it feels disrespectful, but that is the conversation. He's been taking every right guard snap because Donko and Rucci were out during the spring. Now they're all back, and we're having this conversation, and I think it's a fair conversation to have, right?
Yeah, I think it's a fair conversation, and I think it was. It's not premature to say that he came in and was an immediate green light because he did all the right things and he showed that he has that makeup. He belongs on the field. You can't not play him in a good way, right? It's not a or else. It's hey, he belongs on the field. And at a young age. However, the conversation doesn't seem to ever steer toward where is Cooper Cousins' ceiling right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like the floor, we know where the floor is, and that's great. That's a great floor to have. He belongs on the field. He's going to play on the field. And maybe he's going to win that job. Like maybe he will. Maybe he'll be that good. But it just seems like it's framed more often in the context of work so hard, loves the game, married to the game, all of those things, which are all great things. But is he the better right guard right now than Anthony Donka? I don't know. And I think that's what I think, like that there's always kind of this, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody. There's always this like hushed tones, like, what if? And but like, that's literally what preseason camp is about.
Yeah. I've given literally my what if is just for pure beef. If you move Cooper Cousins to center, now you have the largest offensive line I've ever seen at Penn State. Just the most physically dominant group across the board. That would be wild. Obviously, like There's the youth aspect of that with Cousins at center that like is probably not going to happen. But even if you like a goal line package where you put him at center and Venga at fullback, that's certainly one way to do it. Z-Man, just to get out of here because we do have to go. Z-Man has totally redeems himself after this. He says, "Redshirt Donko? Come on. Then he says, likely an injury will happen, so they need all of them ready to go. And Steven agrees with him, says bumps and bruises are going to take care of this issue. That is the reality here. If you have 8 starting offensive linemen, if you end the season with 7 or 6 or 5, that's where you want to be. And so, again, nobody's hoping that happens, but the reality is it's 100% injury rate in football. Players, coaches say that all the time. The depth here is not just for playing on the depth chart, but also for the contingencies of what may happen in the future. It doesn't have to be a long-term injury. It could also just be for a couple of weeks. Nate, we're off to a hot start here in the season.
Yeah.
Awesome show. Thank you to everyone here. The chat kept itself interested during the show as well. Like there was a whole second show going on in the chat. Love that. Nate, tell people where they can go and get more from you today.
Yeah, Blue White Illustrated on the On3 network. Check it out. Tons of stuff. You got to be a member. It's $1. Sign up. If you're not, I don't like to make promises, but I promise you're going to enjoy yourself. And especially when you get access to the message boards and can interact with everybody on the staff, literally all hours of the night. I woke up in the middle of the night last night, and I may have been responding to questions at like 2 a.m. It's all kind of
Did
a
you
fog
fall
right
asleep
now.
in on your couch and then wake up and then
No, I had some nightmares last night. It doesn't matter anyway.
You stole my outro, Nate, because I was going to say, we know the season is here when I had a nightmare last night that woke me up at 5 a.m. because I was worried that I had missed the Nevada tailgate show. Football's here. It's time to go. And it is actually time for us to go. That'll do it for today's BWI Live Show. Greg and I are going to be coming back tomorrow talking about Bruce Feldman's freak list, discussing all the players on it, and something I thought was fun yesterday, how they can take those freak traits and turn them into superstar performances, because athleticism doesn't always equal production. And if it does, what does it mean for those players? That's coming up in part. A lot more stuff as well coming up tomorrow on the BWI Live Show. Practice Thursday, so make sure you check out the site. You subscribe so you get notifications about Franklin's press conference and highlights then. We'll talk to you later.